Okay, so why don't we get started? Uh, First off, thank you everyone for taking the time to join me and Maxime today. I think it's going to be an interesting one, one with rich in learnings and conversations at the end. We ask that you hold your questions till the end. In fact, you can ask your questions in the chat, but we will address them once the presentation is done. So just a quick intro on myself. I'm Aksel Bedikyan. I am the VP of Analytics at Léger. Basically, it's a team comprised of analysts and data scientists across Canada. We help our clients make better business decisions, always anchored in business realities, the models that we build, the data that we work with. We're known a lot for survey based data, of course, that's the bread and butter of Léger. But we, as an analytics team, we work with all sorts of data. We're data agnostic, so to speak. So we'll work with client data directly. We'll work with data that's available to us online, video, audio, podcasts, you name it. There's no shortage there. And we basically help our clients make better business decisions. So if somebody wants to launch a new service, a product, or go to market, is it a good idea? Is it not? What's the market sizing for it? How do you launch into a market? How do you acquire new clients? How do you retain them? How do you improve the customer experience? So very much data at the service of the business and the questions that business leaders ask themselves. So today, Maxime Cohen, whom we've had a chance to collaborate with in the past, is going to spend a little bit of time with us to talk to us about AI, particularly in the world of retail. You'll see a lot of the learnings and a lot of the insights here are applicable across categories, so it's not just for retail. He's the chair professor at McGill University for Scale AI, and a bunch of other stuff that he'll share with us today. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great session. I hope you get to learn a couple of things. I hope it gets you to think about your business and maybe come up with a couple of questions that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about. And hopefully that's what happens as a result of this webinar. So I will leave the floor to Maxime because he's the star of today's webinar. And then I'll pick it back up at the end to field some questions.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Aksel. Hi, everyone. Very nice to be here today. So I'm excited to talk about AI. In the last few months, a lot of people are talking a lot about this fantastic field. So hopefully we're going to take today's webinar to discuss AI and how can it be used in the domain of retail. Let me share my screen. Aksel, can you confirm that you can see my screen? Perfect. Thank you very much. So my name is Maxime Cohen. I have a slide about my background in the next one. I'm a Scale AI chair professor at McGill University. And today I'm going to present about leveraging AI, so artificial intelligence, for retail excellence. And again, I thank you, Aksel. And I would like also to take some time to thank Léger for this opportunity, making this webinar accessible. We do it both in French and English, to make sure that it's fully accessible to a large amount of individuals who are interested and curious and intrigued to learn about AI, in particular in the sector of retail. So just to talk a little bit about myself, so my name is Maxime Cohen. I hold the Scale AI chair of retail and operations at McGill University. I moved to Montreal 4 years ago. I'm also the chief AI officer at ELNA Medical. ELNA Medical is the largest network of clinics in Canada. We have more than 100 clinics in 5 provinces, and we are really trying to adopt some sort of data-driven and AI strategy in the healthcare sector to improve the healthcare system and to increase access to the largest number of patients in Canada. Before moving to Montreal 4 years ago, I was a prof at New York University. Before that, I was at Google AI, also in the New York City office. In terms of my education, I got my PhD in operations research. I always like to say the joke that, 10 years ago when I got my PhD, we didn't call it AI, we call it a bunch of other names, and operations research was one of them, which is a field of using data and mathematical modeling to make business decisions. So I did a PhD at MIT in Boston, and before that got my master's and bachelor's in science at the Technion in Israel. In terms of research interests, most of my research is about retail operations. That's going to be the topic of the webinar today. I did a lot of work on revenue management and pricing optimization. I did also some work in the context of online platforms, A/B testing, and sustainability. And of course, I will bring a lot of examples from my own research in this webinar today. Now, in addition to my academic position at McGill University, I do quite a bit of work in consulting and research collaborations. So in Canada, I'm a scientific advisor in AI and data science at Ivado Labs. Ivado Labs has a very interesting mandate from the Canadian government to help large Canadian corporations to adopt AI. So we are working with a multitude of large clients in Canada, and we help them in their technological strategy, collecting the data, using the data to assist decisions. So it's very aligned also with the webinar's topic. I was an advisor for several years for Google and Waze. I worked with Oracle, IBM, VR, ride-sharing companies, Spotify, Aldo Group here in Montreal. Also have a collaboration with Couche-Tard, which I will talk in a few minutes in terms of the Retail Innovation Lab that we launched in Montreal here. And I also sit on the advisory board of several startups. So the outline of today's webinar is as follows. First and foremost, we're going to try to understand and demystify the concept of artificial intelligence, or in short, AI. Again, we heard a lot of buzz in the media in the last few months. It's important to take a step back and make sure we define, we demystify, what do we mean by AI? Then I'm going to talk about this collaboration with Couche-Tard, so Alimentation Couche-Tard, which is like a Quebec success story. And we open in collaboration between Couche-Tard and McGill University, the Retail Innovation Lab. The retail is open to the public 24/7, downtown Montreal. So we are more than happy to welcome you if you are curious and want to visit the lab. Then we're going to take a little bit of a deep dive into 3 case studies based on my own experience, where we applied AI in 3 different applications of retail and was successful stories of leveraging AI for retail excellence. And then it will not be responsible to talk 1 hour about AI without mentioning like the responsible aspect, the fairness, the ethics, all the challenges that are very important nowadays. And I would like to, spend some time talking about those type of what is responsible AI, what are the pitfalls, what are the challenges, especially in terms of fairness and ethics. And finally, we will conclude the webinar. So let me get started by what is AI. So AI stands for artificial intelligence, but actually we hear a lot of different buzzwords. We hear AI, of course, we also hear about ML, machine learning, we hear about deep learning, data science, business analytics, data mining, and so on and so forth. So let's take a step back and try to define AI. Of course, there is no universal definition, but here's a definition that I feel is fairly good and representative. So I'm going to read it. AI is a synergy of technologies that enable a machine to sense, act, and learn in a way that resembles human intelligence and perform tasks such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision-making, and translation between languages. So this is a very general definition. I think the 2 key elements in that definition, the first one is resembles human intelligence. So we want the machine or the computer to perform in a way that looks like human intelligence. That's the first key point. And the second key point is one of the tasks that is given here as an example is decision-making, which is the one that is the most important in the context of today's lecture of retail or retail operations or retail decision-making. Now, it is important to differentiate between AI and automation. So AI is not just automation, it's actually much more. It's making decisions by analyzing data. So you have access to a lot of data. We're going to talk in a few minutes that you cannot do AI without having data. And the more data you have, typically, the more accurate your data-driven decision-making is going to be. But AI is learning through the data to make decisions. It's not just hard coding, having some rules and automating the decision through just some simple code. No, AI is looking at the data, trying to infer some knowledge and patterns from the data and making some sort of decision through learning. Now, many examples, as we already mentioned, one big one is an AI chess player done about 10 years ago by IBM Watson's, who built a big computer machine who is able to compete with the biggest players by learning from millions of games in chess and trying to understand what are the optimal strategies. Another big example, obviously, self-driving cars. Another one is automated financial investing. In Canada, we have the platform Wealthsimple, who launched an AI-assisted platform investment that can do some investment based on the market, based on AI. We have, of course, chatbots for customer service in retail. We have personalized recommendations, something I'm going to talk much more in a few minutes. Now, there is a subfield of AI called business analytics, which is more closely related to the talk today. And business analytics can be defined as using data together with modeling and computation to identify and capture business value to ultimately be more profitable and make better business. Now, when you talk about AI and data analytics, one of the most important things I want to tell today in the webinar is there are three types of AI. I like to call them levels of maturity. The first type of AI is called descriptive AI. And descriptive AI tries to answer the question, what happened in the past? Basically, I have access to a lot of historical data from the past. I'm going to look at this data and trying to understand and explain what happened in the past. So it can have several applications of descriptive AI. One of them is to learn new patterns about your business. So you're going to look at the data, and hopefully from the data, you're going to learn new patterns you didn't know. Obviously, if you knew it, it's not super useful, but some new patterns from large amounts of data through descriptive AI. Another possible use case is customer segmentation. I'm going to look at all the data from all my customers, and I'm going to try to group my customers in several groups or segments or cohorts, and then I can try to characterize those different groups and potentially to send different promotions, different advertising to each one of my segments. And the third application can be to identify new trends. When my data is collected, I can identify new patterns or new trends that are somewhat popping up in my business as early as possible in order to be able to be reactive and take new decisions. So this is the first level of maturity of AI, descriptive AI. The next level of maturity, the second type of AI, is called predictive AI. And here it's a little bit more ambitious. We are trying to answer the question, what is likely to happen in the future? So we're going to use the data from the past, but now we're going to try to make some inference or to predict what is likely to happen in the future. It's obviously tougher than just saying what happened in the past. Here we have many examples as well. One of the most common examples is demand prediction. So I want to use the data from the past for my transactions to predict demand for the future, and we're going to talk about this use case in a few minutes. Second example, classification problems. So I have some information coming to my system, and I want to classify in different classes. The very traditional example is pictures. I get pictures of cats versus pictures of dogs. I want to train an algorithm to recognize if a picture is a cat or a dog. So I'm going to give the algorithm a very large number of pictures, and I'm going to tell the computer, hey, here is a dog, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a dog. And then I'm going to give a new picture that was not so before. And then I'm going to ask the algorithm to recognize if this new picture is a dog or cat, classify it. Another example of classification is emails, to classify them as spams versus non-spams. So emails are coming to the inbox, and I want to be able to classify them based on some features, for example, the number of capital letters in the title and so on, to make sure that we classify if it's a spam email or non-spam. Third example of predictive AI is anomaly detection. So here I want to detect some very rare events. Think about supply chain disruption. think about a tornado or like some sort of natural catastrophe, and I want to make sure to detect the early signs so I can detect that there's likely to have an anomaly and to make sure that we take some sort of proactive measures to prevent the consequence of this anomaly. And finally, the third level of maturity of AI, called prescriptive AI, here it's the most ambitious one. I want to try to answer the question, what should I do in the future? In other words, which actions should I take? So one example, obviously related to this talk today, is data-driven decision-making. I want to use the data together with AI algorithms to make decisions. You can have many decisions. In retail, we can have something called retail optimization. I want to decide optimally my prices, my promotions, my inventory management, my supply chain, which suppliers to work with, how often to order for my suppliers. And the last example worth mentioning here is the example of A/B testing. If I want to test two strategies, A and B, for example, if I sell t-shirts online in e-commerce, I can sell my t-shirts $49 or $69, and I can split my users in two groups. One group try $49, the second group $69, A versus B, collect the data and try to understand if the optimal price was $49 or $69. And again, we'll talk about this example in more depth in a few slides from now. Now, what is very important to mention here, we have those three levels of maturity for AI. And typically, you need to start with the first one. Actually, the first one is to collect the data. Without data, you cannot do anything. Once you have the data, you start with descriptive AI. It takes around 2 to 3 months to do a good job. Then you move to predictive AI, second level of maturity. It takes like 3 to 9 months. And only then you can move to prescriptive AI, which is some sort of golden standard and the one that can unlock the large amount of value for your business. Now, I just want to spend another few minutes to discuss a little bit more into details of 3 levels of AI. So the first level of maturity, descriptive AI, as we already discussed, the goal is to analyze data to better understand the business. We want to learn surprising patterns, identify new trends or new opportunities, as well as finding clusters or segments of customers. Now, the most common tool or output from descriptive AI is called a dashboard. A dashboard is going to be a data visualization tool that can help people in the company to understand the data for their specific function in a visual way. So here's an example of a data dashboard. For example, order analysis for a fashion e-commerce retailer. So I have a fashion e-commerce retailer. Here it's an example of an e-commerce retailer in the US, sells different categories of products. We have hoodies, we have sweatshirts, we have tops, and so on. And I can visualize my data in a dashboard. So I can have the users by states. I can have the top sales by categories. I can have the acquisition channels over time for my users, as well as the sales figures over week. And on the top of my dashboard, I have several filters. I can filter the users based on the age. If they join the website, I can ask for the birth date, and then I have access to the demographics data of my users. I can also filter the users based on the geographic allocation. If I click on one state, the visualization will focus only on the users from that state. Now, typically, a dashboard is done in a customized way. For each person in the company, you can say which KPI you care about. You can care about profits, about revenue. You can also tell what filters you would like to have on top. So you can zoom into specific classes of users or types of products and so on. And what I like to say about data dashboards, it's a very nice way to democratize data access within a company. You can create dashboards for marketing people, for finance and accounting, for sales, for operations. And each function in the company can have their own data dashboard, fully customized based on their needs and the KPIs they're interested in tracking. Now, the goal is to have the data refreshing every day or every couple of days. And then people can look at the data dashboard to understand their business from a data perspective and be able to be reactive and potentially make better decisions driven by data. Now, as we spoke, the second level of maturity is called predictive AI. Here, the goal is to leverage data to predict future outcomes. So it's a bit more ambitious. And the biggest use case in the context of retail is called demand prediction. I actually spent almost 3 years in my career to write a book on a topic. So the book is called Demand Prediction in Retail. I brought here a copy of the book, so I'm showing it on camera so you can see like the physical copy. It's a book based on my experience working with more than 30 retailers in the US, in Canada, and in Europe, trying to help them use data from the past to predict future demand. Now, the good thing about demand prediction is the fact that it's a very universal topic. It's a topic that is true for both B2B and B2C, business to business and business to consumers. It's also applicable for large corporations like supermarkets or fashion retailers, as well as smaller businesses. It can be done for restaurants. I'm a restaurant, I want to predict how many people will show up on a Saturday night between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m. It's also applied in hospitals. I'm a hospital. I want to predict the demand for specific surgeries, so I can plan accordingly number of surgeons, number of nurses, number of beds. It can obviously be done for supermarkets. I want to predict the demand for specific products, so I can use that information to optimize my level of inventory on the shelves. And the list goes on and on. It's a widely applied topic. Now, in addition to demand prediction, obviously there are many other examples of predictive AI. For example, it's been several decades that we have weather forecasts. In the last few years, we saw a lot of application in terms of predicting the daily number of COVID-19 cases, or daily number of hospitalizations, or number of deaths. Also in marketing, a very nice application is a customer lifetime value. I have a customer, I want to acquire that customer, so I want to spend money for acquisition costs. I want to make sure first to have a good access to my customer lifetime value. Another one that we briefly mentioned is the likelihood of supply chain disruptions, predictive maintenance, for example, for a company like Bombardier, likelihood of loan defaulting in finance, spam emails, and so on and so forth. And the third level of maturity, prescriptive AI, which is again the golden standard, the most useful to make decisions for businesses. Here the goal is to use past data to make future decisions, so data-driven decision making. Here the machinery is much more sophisticated. We need to rely on optimization models and algorithms, and we have many examples. One example close to my expertise is price optimization, optimizing pricing and promotions, inventory management, personalized recommendations, online matching, procurement and fulfillment, like companies like Amazon and Alibaba, staffing, how many people to hire, where to allocate those people inside the company, fleet optimization for companies like Uber or airlines, portfolio management in finance, chatbots, and so on and so forth. Now, of course, I couldn't give a talk about AI and not mentioning generative AI, which has seen a tremendous buzz in the last few months. So generative AI is a very exciting progress of AI technologies. And I would like to first discuss the way that this technology has been disrupted the industry in general. So when you look at different technologies and you want to know how disruptive or how big of a revolution they are bringing to the society, one interesting metric to look at is the time it takes for the technology to reach 1 million users. So if you look at a company like Airbnb, took 2.5 years to reach 1 million users. Look at Facebook, took 10 months to get 1 million users. Spotify, 5 months. Chat GPT took 5 days to reach 1 million users. To me, it's a mind-blowing piece of information. So the estimated number of users last April was 173 million users. Most sources today say there was at least 100 million active users per month, 1.8 billion visits in April, which translates into 60 million visits per day, which is again mind-blowing. Now, what is generative AI? So first, it's a subset of prescriptive AI. So remember, we talked about 3 types of AI: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. Generative is a subset of prescriptive AI, but with a lot of particularities, also super powerful. Now, here's a definition. generative AI is a type of AI capable of generating content. As the name indicates, generative because they're going to generate content. Which type of content? Can be text, can be images, can be audio, video, code. A lot of software developers are using generative AI to some sort of getting a co-pilot to help them program and write some code much faster, much more efficiently. Can also generate blog articles in marketing in response to what's called prompts. So I'm going to open Chat GPT or another large language models. I'm going to write some sort of instructions called prompts. And those prompts are going to generate some results, which is new contents. Now, it's all amazing and super useful, and you can gain a lot of productivity, but it has a lot of important pitfalls and dangers. The first pitfall is around privacy. Those tools are trained with a large amount of data, and when you're going to input your own data to those tools, one needs to be very careful about the privacy. If you give your data to tools like Chat GPT, they can sometimes use this data to retrain their algorithm. And then this data, if it's proprietary or business sensitive, it's exposed to a large amount of users, which can be very dangerous and very problematic. Another big danger is the one of deepfakes. For example, it can create some images which are totally fake, totally wrong, but the problem is they look extremely realistic, and therefore we cannot know if the image is fake or not fake, and that can create a lot of issues for society. Another big one is the one of misinformation, which we like to call recently hallucination. So ChatGPT and other tools are going to just invent new information, again, that is extremely credible, but this is totally wrong. So that can be also a very, very big problem in terms of providing misinformation to the public. Another issue is plagiarism. It's going to create some new images, for example. Who owns the copyright for those images if those new created images were inspired by images that have some sort of copyright protected in the training data? Another big issue is biases. We're going to talk more about biases at the end of this presentation. Another issue is if you ask the same question several times, it's possible to get different answers. And then there is a question of which is the one that is the right answer, which is wrong. There is not level of truth, and therefore it creates a lot of societal issues. Now, the good news is the fact that this type of technologies is improving super fast every day, and therefore some of those problems will be less and less kind of critical, but still it's very important to be aware that this technology raises a lot of societal and some sort of ethical issues. Now, AI can help with several business decisions, and here I just want to spend one slide about the type of business decisions driven by AI. So the first decision is to use all the data from the past to come up with a profiling of several cohorts or segments of my customers. I want to understand better my customers in my website or in my business, and AI is very good at that, can understand the type of customers coming to my business, what they are looking for, and then I can use those type of knowledge to be able to personalize a customer experience or to send targeted, customized offer for each segment of customers. Another big decision driven by AI can be pricing and promotions. I can use all the historical transaction data to optimize future pricing and promotion decisions. And we're going to talk about this use case in a few minutes. Next example is targeted advertising and targeted offers. By understanding better my customers, I can optimize the level of personalization to send the right offer to the right user at the right time. Another big example of a logistical decision driven by AI is inventory management and supply chain management. Another one is assortment and planogram decisions. Think about a store, physical store. I want to decide which items I should carry in my inventory and where to position these items on the shelves. Shall it be on the top shelf, bottom shelf, middle shelf? And all those decisions can be also done with data-driven and AI techniques. Another one is personalized recommendation, and we'll talk about this one in a few minutes as well. logistics and deliveries. I want to optimize my fleet, optimize the routing of my trucks to deliver several products to several customers. AI is very good for this type of decisions. And I can also use AI for more strategic and tactical decisions, like opening a new store or identifying new opportunities or growing opportunities for my niche. Now, here's just a list of some of the decisions. Obviously, many more decisions can also be done by AI. But what is important to understand is you cannot tackle those decisions if you don't have good data. So AI is fueled by data. And if you want to do good data-driven AI decisions, you need to have good data. So which type of data can you have in order to assist your AI decisions? First one is transactions and POS data, so point of sales data, including returns. If you are a retailer, you have access to all your historical transactions. You have the time of the transactions, the different products included in transaction called a basket. I have each product with the price of each product. If one of the products was in promotions, you also have the information if the person returned the products, to which store they bought it, to which store they returned. All this information can be extremely useful to potentially be used to leverage the data in order to improve decisions. If you're talking in the e-commerce world or in the online world in general, we have access to personal attributes. First, I have the IP address of my users. The IP address translates to a geographical location. I know where the users are located. If I ask my users to create an account, I will also know the birth date, the gender. I can know a lot of different attributes that can help me to personalize the customer experience and to learn more pertinent information about the users in my website. If I ask users to fill in some surveys, so that's the main expertise of the world leader Leger in terms of doing the surveys can give me very valuable information about my users to trying to serve them best, trying to understand what they like, what they don't like, and this data is super useful for future decisions. Similarly, if the users left some reviews on my website, I can extract some keywords from my review to understand the sentiment of those users and potentially to be able to use this data to better understand my customers. Still in the online and e-commerce world, I have browsing data. Users are browsing my website. I have access to cookies. Next year, actually, the cookies will not be easily accessible anymore. I know what are users clicking on. I know the keywords they're searching in a key search bar. I know the dwell time or the amount of time they spend in each page in my website, so I can understand what they like, what they don't like, and so on. I can also purchase external data. So there is data for my internal transactions, but I can also purchase data from the markets, from competition indicators. There's a lot of third-party data aggregators selling those type of data in order to complement internal data. Now, a very good way to collect data is by being more proactive. So far, the data collected was just a passive collection mode. I passively collect. One possibility is to test and try different strategies, and then to proactively collect very valuable data. So think about prices. The example I gave, you have an e-commerce retailer, you want to sell t-shirts, you don't know if the right price should be $49 or $69. You're going to try two prices, A and B. You're going to split your users, and you're going to try to collect this super valuable data to understand what is the best price for my product. Similarly, I can send two types of offers, 10% off or 15% off. I'm going to test those two types of offers with my users, collect the data, and make some inference about which one of the offers was the most efficient and the most profitable, so moving forward, I can scale with the one that works best. Another types of data very useful is sensors and Internet of Things type of data, and I will discuss the application of the Retail Innovation Lab with Pushtal in a few minutes, where we use sensors data to track the trajectory of customers inside the store. You can also collect external sources. So here, the use case is to have a data robot or crawler that's going to crawl some other website. It could be my competitors' websites. it can be social media data, it can be news, it can be Google Trends, trying to understand what people are talking about. I want to go to social media, trying to understand what are people trending, what are people posting about. I can go to the news to do some key feature extraction to extract what is the general sentiment. Is there a specific topic that people are interested? What are people searching on Google? And all this data is going to help me to refine my forecast, to refine my knowledge of how the world is moving, to ideally make better decisions for my business. Now, obviously, you collect and store some data. There is several challenges. Typically, the data is going to be very noisy. You're going to have to spend a lot of time and effort to clean the data. You're going to spend a lot of effort to have the issue of missing data. And we can speak for like many hours about all the data challenges. Actually, in my book, we have a full chapter on the data challenges and how to potentially address those challenges in the real world. Now, I would like to discuss into more detail of an example in online retail. So think the example of, I want to buy a product. In my example here, it's headphones. And assume I go to Amazon.ca and I'm typing the word headphones on Amazon. The problem is Amazon is selling more than 10,000 different headphones. Now, the research has shown that 80% of the users will only look at the first 10 products displayed on the search results. Now, if the users are on mobile, and today Amazon's traffic in North America is 50% on mobile, actually 65% of users are looking only at the 3 first results that are displayed. So if you're Amazon, a crucial decision is how to decide which items to display and in which order. So if I have 10,000, and I know that most people will look only at the first 3 or the first 10, it's critical to make sure that I'm going to select the right items to put in my list. Now, luckily, Amazon has access to a lot of data, and they can come up with customized recommendations. So if a user, based on a previous history of purchases, is buying a lot of expensive technological gadgets, I can potentially display headphones that are all wireless headphones, noise cancelling. If, on the other hand, I have another user, and the user likes cheap products, typically I can look at all the transactions for the past and offer in my list of items only headphones that are costing below $10 or $20. So based on the features and how much I know about the users, I can customize or personalize the recommendations. That's a very important application. And obviously, Amazon has access to a lot of data. They have access to the previous transactions, what you click on, the reviews you posted. If you're a Prime member, they also have access to the movies you are watching on Amazon Prime, to the pictures you are storing on the... So they have access to a lot of data. They can use this data to personalize and make the recommendation as pertinent as possible to hopefully improve the customer experience. Another big application of customized recommendations is Netflix. If both you and I are opening Netflix, we're going to have a drastically different recommendation page based on the shows that we watched in the past, how fast we watched it, how fast we stopped watching it. If I stop one episode and I stop, it's not the same information if I watch 2 minutes and stop it. So all this information is used, and AI algorithms are run to make sure to recommend the most pertinent TV shows and movies for each specific users. Now, as I said already a couple of times, I'm involved in a collaboration between McGill University, the Ben Sadon School of Retail Management, together with Kushtar. The lab is called the Retail Innovation Lab, so in short, RIL, and the vision of the lab is to blend multidisciplinary research with cutting-edge technologies to investigate and practice responsible innovation for the future of retail. And of course, AI is a big part of this project. So as it said here, we have multidisciplinary research. We have research from AI, computer science, robotics, law, economics, regulations, policies, and many more. We have a strong focus on social and ethical responsibility. We are using cutting-edge technology. Several types of technology are deployed in the lab. So we like to call it the store of the future. So you can see there is a couche-tard, but there is also the word connecté. That's the only couche-tard connecté logo around the world. This is kind of a very futuristic type of store. If you live close to Montreal, you are welcome to come visit it. The store is visited on the McGill University campus, downtown Montreal, a little bit more than 2,000 square feet. So the first technology we have on the ceiling, we have a system of around 50 cameras, and those cameras are going to track the trajectories of customers inside the store. So we'll know how people are moving inside the store and how long they're spending in each part of the store. We're going to collect this data. Of course, this data is collected in a purely privacy-preserving fashion. We don't collect any facial recognition. We don't collect any names. We don't collect any personal information. Everything is anonymized. Everything is de-identified. Everything is also aggregated. But we want to understand how people are moving in the store in order to optimize the store layouts, in order to optimize the store arrangements. And all this data is used to improve the customer experience. So that's one of the technology we are using. Another technology is this frictionless retail. If you go to the store, you can download the couche-tard app. Then you come into the store, you can tap your smartphone on this red machine here. You can pick up which products you want, and then you can tap it and you can exit. You don't need to do a checkout. You don't need to wait in line. You don't need to make payment. Everything is done automatically with the aid of technology. And we have many more technology. And again, I invite you, if you live in Montreal, to come visit. It's open 24/7 to the public. It's some sort of a futuristic store. Now, we opened the store a little bit less than 2 years ago. We did a lot of projects. So let me briefly mention the projects. One of the projects we did in collaboration with the Ministry of Economics and Innovation of Quebec is to try to understand how can we nudge or incentivize customers to eat healthier. So we want to make sure that customers' habits are changing for the better. How can I incentivize customers to buy healthy products? Think about fruits, vegetables, instead of pastries and donuts and chocolates. And we did a lot of efforts trying to understand how can we incentivize people to change habit in terms of healthy food choices. Second project is about planogram optimization. So again, planogram optimization is where to allocate products on the shelves. So we all know that the products in the middle shelves will sell much better than the products located in the top shelves or the bottom shelves. Why is it true? It's because the product in the middle shelves are closer to the eyes level, so they're more visible, they're easier to see. So we did a lot of testing with couche-tard, trying to switch the position of products in the shelves and trying to understand what is optimal planogram in terms of where to allocate each product in each shelf location. Third project is demand prediction for new stores. So basically, I told you can predict demand, but you need data. Now, if you open a new store, you don't have access to any data for this new store. So how can you do? So together with the master students, we developed a new way where we can leverage the data from all the stores that are similar to try to predict demand for new stores. So we like to call it transfer learning, where we're going to transfer the knowledge from one store to the other to learn for stores for which we don't have any data. Another example is a visual search app where customers can come to the store with a smartphone, take pictures of items inside the store. The technology is going to recognize the items that we took a picture of and going to tell us the characteristic of this item. So if you have some allergies, you can say you have a peanut allergy, and this specific item you took a picture can tell you if this one has peanuts or doesn't contain peanuts. Also, it can tell you the nutritional content, the number of calories, and if this item has too much calories, it can recommend another item that has less calories and tell you where this item is located inside the store. Another example that I already mentioned, because we have access to the data of trajectories of people, we can use this data to optimize the layout of the store. And finally, a last example, which is a little bit more futuristic, we are recreating the digital twin of the store. In a way, I like to call it the store in the metaverse. So we took several tens of thousands of pictures of every corner of the store, and we reproduce the twin of the store in the metaverse, where we can imagine that you and I can be at home, putting some VR glasses, and potentially be having an immersive experience inside the store, walking around, looking at products, touching the products, flipping them, looking at them, selecting which one I want to buy, and then paying, and then having my orders delivered in my home. So that's a little bit more of a long-term futuristic project that we've been starting in the last year. Now, in the next 10 minutes or so, I would like to take a little bit of a deep dive into 3 case studies that I worked with companies in the last few years where AI was extremely successful and had a very nice impact for companies. So the first case study is about promotion optimization. So here we worked with several supermarkets. In particular, this collaboration started with a large supermarket chain in Europe to optimize promotion. In the last 2 years, as my capacity as an advisor in AI for Ivado Labs, we actually worked with most large supermarkets in Canada to also help them optimize promotions, and we could observe a very nice impact on the bottom line. So optimizing promotions for supermarket is a very interesting use case because it encompasses all levels of AI, starting from descriptive to predictive, all the way to prescriptive AI. In this work, we filed 3 US patents and we wrote 5 academic papers. All the material is available on my personal website, so if you're curious, feel free to take a look. I have a lot of material describing the way of doing it. We could increase the profits of the supermarkets between 2 and 5%, depending on the category of product and the store. So it's a very nice win because you don't have any type of cost, same number of promotions as before, just you have the development cost of developing the algorithm, and then you can deploy it at scale, and year after year, you can increase your profits. And to me, this is a very nice example where decisions made by AI actually can outperform decisions made by humans. Even managers with 20 or 30 years of experience could not make very good decisions about promotions, but the AI could make better decisions. I definitely don't claim that AI makes better decisions for every single type of fields, but promotion optimization was proven to be one of the applications where AI could actually outperform human decisions. Now, if you want to learn more, a couple of months ago, we wrote an article here. There is a link. You can also find it on my website. It's an article targeted to managers to explain the entire process of this use case of using AI and data analytics to optimize promotion optimization for retail. The second case study is about A/B tests for pricing. And so here I collaborated with a company called Intelligence. Intelligence is based in the US, is literally the world leader of online price testing. So again, you have an e-commerce retailer selling any type of products online. It can be glasses, it can be furniture, it can be t-shirts, fashion. And typically, if you're a retailer, you have a hard time setting the right price. There's a lot of tools you can do. You can do some market research, you can do focus groups, you can try to ask your customers, but it's very hard to know what is the optimal price. Here, the good news is testing can help quite a bit, and Intelligence has been running more than 1,000 tests with more than 400 retailers around the world. I serve as an advisor for the company. We've been running a lot of tests, and we developed a very nice methodology to make sure that our tests are designed very carefully. The duration of the test is very, very short. We try to run the test in the smallest amount of time to learn the maximal amount of knowledge in order to understand what is the optimal price for each product in each segment of customers. Now, we tested various strategies. A very cool example is charm pricing. So charm pricing refers to the practice of ending prices by 9 cents or 5 cents. And we tested ending prices by 9 cents, 5 cents, having even number of prices. And there are several caveats. If you're more curious, again, we wrote a case study. I'm teaching a full lecture based on this case study for my executive MBA, for my other students at McGill, for several e-commerce retailers who are interested in that topic, and you can read all the material is published online as well. And the third and last case study I would like to mention is with a company called VIA. So VIA filed a few weeks ago the IPO for a couple of billions. So it's a large company. It's a ride-sharing company, a competitor like Uber. And the key idea of that use case was to showcase that AI can help improve customer service. So the key idea we had is to identify frustrations. So in that context, frustration refers to a poor quality of service. So you take a ride with VIA and you had a bad experience. For example, you waited for your ride a very long time, or your ride was somewhat painful and stopped a lot along the way. Now, with the data we collect, VIA can know in real time exactly the customer quality of service or frustration, and they can be proactive and apologize by offering targeted compensation. So we tested different proactive actions on riders who experience a frustration. So again, a frustration is a poor quality of service. So someone experienced a large delay, we try to proactively apologize and give a refund, or give a gift card, or just a cheap apology. We apologize, but without any monetary compensation. It worked extremely well in terms of boosting engagement, sometimes with double-digit return on investment. And VIA was very generous to allow us to publish all the results from this research in an academic paper that is also available on my personal website, as well as on the link here on the slides. So hopefully those three case studies can give you some sort of idea and convince you that AI can be very useful if you have access to the right data, you have the right ID, you can leverage this data with the right ID to automate something and make it learning from the data to optimize decision making to ultimately improve the bottom line. So as I said at the beginning, it will be not responsible for me to give a talk about AI without spending a few minutes discussing the pitfalls and the challenges that AI is bringing to society. And actually, I'm very honored to have been mandated as an expert for the Quebec government. We are several experts that are helping the Quebec government trying to come up with the set of regulation to govern this space and make sure that we are talking to ensure that the practice and the deployment of AI is not harmful to society. So the first issue is in terms of biases. As I explained at the beginning, those AI algorithms are trained on a very large amount of data from the past. Now, these data can have some biases. Biggest example, in insurance companies, you train the AI from past data, and the past data can have the potential bias that female drivers are paying a higher premium insurance than male drivers. Now, if the AI is looking at this data, it's going to look at this bias and potentially perpetuate the bias, and can be a very dangerous practice, because the new data will have new biases, and these new biases will be trained again, and this data will be a vicious circle. Amazon was faced with a big lawsuit recently because exactly of that issue. Amazon receives thousands of CVs per day of people who want to work for Amazon. They developed an AI CV screening, and the AI understood that male, female, and also race can have very different performance for the jobs at Amazon, and then those biases can lead to discrimination. So if you have some biases in your data, AI is going to learn from the biases, it's going to perpetuate or even accentuate the biases, which can ultimately lead to discrimination, which is very bad. It can be racial, it can be sexist, and very dangerous for society. Now, what needs to be done here, it's a very active research area. Myself, in the last couple of years, did a lot of work on this type of problems. We need to impose fairness constraints on solution. Actually, you have two ways to solve it. You can either debias the data to start with at the source. So you have the data, you can find ways to debias the data, train on this debiased data to make sure that the output of the solutions don't have biases. Or you can say, the data is a data, I don't want to mess up with it, but I want the solutions output from the AI to make sure that leads some fairness outputs by imposing fairness constraint, and this is definitely not easy to do. And as I already said, there was an urgent need to regulate this space. Fortunately, in Canada and in Quebec in particular, the government is very well aware of this urgent need. We really need to work around the table, regulators, politicians, economists, data scientists, AI experts, all of us together to make sure that we set up the right set of regulations, that we control the use of this technology to make sure that we don't have very bad unintended consequences on society. So let me just conclude this talk. So the first takeaway, I believe I didn't teach you, you knew that already, that AI is everywhere. AI is here to stay, it's inevitable, it affects every company from the smallest to the biggest, in any vertical. Obviously in healthcare, we see a huge boost of AI, helping doctors to diagnose, helping the system to increase access. AI is here in retail, AI is here for lawyers, for the justice system, is really disrupting almost every single domain, and is going to become even more and more in our lives on a daily basis. The second takeaway here is the availability and scale of data offer huge opportunities. We have access to very large amounts of data. There was a slide at the beginning which someone got dropped here, but I talk about the availability of data and the scale of data that is cheaper and cheaper to collect and store, and that offers very good opportunity because this data is a gold mine. There is a lot of knowledge, a lot of insights hidden in this data, and the algorithm can learn to improve future decisions. Now, as I said already, there was a substantial impact across multitude of industries. Today, we focused on the retail sector. It has a drastic impact. We also have a huge impact in healthcare. We have a huge impact in transportation, in the hospitality industry, in marketing, you name it. Now, obviously, AI is very impactful and can improve productivity quite a bit, but at the same time, it has several challenges. We talked about it, these biases from the data, fairness issue, ethical issue, misinformation, copyright, hallucination from Chat GPT, and so on and so forth. Now, the quote I would like to leave you with, which is a quote I really like, is the following: AI won't replace managers, it won't replace doctors, it won't replace lawyers, but managers, doctors, and lawyers who use AI will replace the managers who do not use AI. They'll be more productive, they'll be more efficient, and if you decide not to embrace it, you're going to be left behind. So that concludes my talk. If you have any question, you can please ask now. We have 15 minutes, a Q&A session. You can write your question in the Q&A chat bot. Thank you very much. I want once again to thank Aksel and the entire Léger group, Jean-Marc in particular, Rachel from the marketing, and other people who helped put this webinar in place. Thank you very much for your attention today.
Thank you, Maxime. Thank you so much. We're going to give our participants a couple of minutes to jot out their questions.
Yeah. I see a question from Zeneb that hopefully got answered by the rest of the talk. Generative AI is a subset of prescriptive AI, but a little bit more powerful because it generates contents instead of making decisions.
Thank you, Maxime.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, by all means, this is the time to ask them. Maxime, maybe I can ask you a question to give some more time for the participants. There was a question that came this morning in our French version. Basically, the question was, how do people get started in AI, right? So there's a big hype around it. There's a lot of value. There's a lot of business value being generated from it. But how do you, sometimes it can seem very overwhelming, like this big beast to tackle. How do you go about it? Like, what's that first step that you can take to be able to start that journey?
No, that's a very good question and very important for many smaller companies. And I think, Aksel, you and I had a very nice discussion in the morning where we suggested to go step by step. Mm-hmm. So you definitely want to identify some sort of quick wins. So typically, first step is to start collecting data. If you're not there, you need to put in place some data infrastructure and architecture to collect and store the data, because this data, you don't want to waste it. There's a lot of information, it's a gold mine. So you want first to put in place a data capture program. Once you have the data, you want to identify some sort of use case that potentially is a quick win to be able to convince managers that data can unlock a lot of issues. So a small use case, start small, and ideally you build up on it. You can start only with dashboarding, for example. You can start with a small predictive effort, and then slowly you can build on top of it to solve harder and harder problems.
Thank you, Maxime. So a couple of more questions. There's one from David. In relation to ethics and fairness with implementation of AI, won't an international set of regulations be required here? If not, development would likely be centered in the countries that have the weakest regulation by companies that are looking first at profits and ethics second. What is your opinion on a solution to this potential problem?
Yeah, David, this is a fantastic question. I wish that we could convince the world to come up with a centralized set of regulations universally accepted. I don't think it's possible, in my opinion. I mean, you see a huge gap between what happened in China and what happens outside China. China is much more advanced than all of us in AI. Why so? Because they collect much more refined and granular data. So they put less emphasis on privacy of users and more on data quality. So definitely it will be, in my opinion, close to impossible to make sure that different countries with different cultural mindset, with different jurisdiction will all agree. It's going to be, I feel, country by country, or sometimes even like province by province or jurisdiction by jurisdiction. But hopefully there'll be some sort of universal rule that will be enforced around the globe, but we are not there yet. It's a very good point.
Thank you, Maxime. We have one from Luc who says, any thoughts on retailers using AI to help with employee engagement, retention, and training?
Yeah, that's a very cool application of AI. I myself didn't have experience in it, but I know several companies are using that to, make sure that employee retention and recruitment today is a big issue across like retail everywhere in the world. So I believe AI can help. Now, we just have to be careful because there is a lot of tools now in terms of gamification. You want to like potentially put employee score on their performance, and you don't want to push people to the limits to become obsessive and to increase the stress level of employees. So you have to strike the balance between improving the productivity, but doing so in a very ethical way. But there is a lot that can be done. Also, there is a lot of usefulness of Chat GPT to make sure that employees are aware on how to leverage this technology to save time, to be more productive, and to be more efficient.
Thank you, Maxime. This is building up on developing capabilities that we talked about a bit earlier, but it's a more specific question. The question is, any advices on building AI skills within data teams? Should we hire contractors or build internal teams?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I like to call it a $1 million question. It's a very hard one to answer very explicitly. It highly depends on the company, the level of maturity, the finances of the company. Obviously, there are trade-offs. My recommendation, I like to try to do a little bit of both. You can start, if you want something fast, you're going to have to hire third-party provider or consulting firm to help you speed up. But you won't typically own the solution. You won't understand all the development stages, so you'll be very hard to customize it later. Now, a lot of companies, including Ivado Labs and others, are trying to build it with the client to speed up the client's effort and then give you full ownership and also do the training so you can take the tool, maintain the tool, and improve it further. My advice is to go a little bit about both. Try to build an internal team. Obviously, it's more costly. It's going to take much more time, but it's going to pay much more dividend in the long term. You're going to own the IP. You're going to understand all the tools. You're going to be able to customize it even more and so on. But because it's going to take so long, you can start in parallel having some sort of consulting third-party firm helping you to speed things up at the beginning.
One way I've seen it done successfully out there is when you're starting out and you're engaging an external consultant or a company to help you, it's a good opportunity to not only get them to do the work, but to learn from them, right? To understand how they're managing the data, how they're going through the cleansing, the processing, the modeling, the analyzing, such that when you start gearing up your efforts, you're not starting from scratch. You actually have something that you have learned from, and then you can start incrementally building from there. I hope that's helpful.
No, it's a very good point. I think a lot of consulting companies also offer some training in complementarity to the consulting. So exactly to address the point that Aksel, you mentioned. It's a very good point.
There's another question here that I thought we can go through. It says, you mentioned anonymization. How does AI affect ways of doing that and treatment under regulations?
So I would say that anonymization and AI are two different fields. Like anonymization will be more like to the data. You have a lot of data. Now you don't want this data to contain sensitive information. If there was a leakage, you lose the data. Think about medical data. This is very sensitive, very, very critical. So you want to make sure to do the anonymization to the data before learning and exposing the data to learn some new attributes or new features. So in that case, what you want to do is first anonymize it and then only give the anonymized data to the AI tool to make sure that you preserve the anonymity of your users. Now, how does AI affect ways of doing that? It just put, because the AI tools, many of them the open source one, if you give some data to the AI tools, sometimes this data is reused and re-injected to train and improve the models constantly. And that is a risk, because if you have very proprietary sensitive data and you use AI and this data is refed back to improve the tool, that's where it can be very tricky. So you either train the tool only offline in your own server without re-injecting the data back to the clouds to other users, or you just anonymize all the data so to make sure that the privacy is fully preserved.
Thank you, Maxime. Maybe we can take one last one. Is Chat GPT considered a web scraping tool? What is the relationship between Chat GPT and Google?
So that's a great point. So Chat GPT is not a scraping tool, definitely not. Scraping tool will be a tool that kind of crawls in website and collect information. Chat GPT is more like a generative AI tool that you're gonna prompt, you're gonna ask questions and they will answer the question. Now, the relationship to Google is very interesting. It has multiple relationships. The way I like to present it is like of a super Google. Like you're going to ask a question to Google, Google just going to provide some results based on the web pages that exist. Maybe it's going to refer you to Wikipedia, it's going to refer you to a Q&A website. ChatGPT is more going to generate content from scratch. Now, obviously, this content may be problematic because of what we spoke, the misinformation or the hallucination. But for example, if you ask like, oh, I'm going to be traveling to Paris next week, what is the best hotel, the best train, the best activities to do under a budget of $1,000? Google cannot answer that question. They can send you websites of Air Canada, website of train, website of restaurants, but ChatGPT can fully bring you a list of, hey, you're going to book your ticket in that website, then you're going to go to that restaurant, then that museums. It can do the entire program for you by collecting a lot of sources and concocting some sort of content that is totally new, that doesn't exist in one single web page. I hope it answers the question.
I think it does. Thank you, Maxime. Maybe we ended on this one. Why are we so scared of AI? Let's keep it a bit esoteric. And
that's a great philosophical question. I'm not a philosopher, but my take on it will be because there is a little bit of loss of control. And humans tend to be scared when they start losing the control. And here, the technologies go so fast and so out of control that we are scared of the possible consequences we didn't think about. We are scared that AI will replace humans. And obviously, it is very bad for civilization. We are scared that AI will take decisions that are bad for humans. So there is a lot of philosophical and ethical concerns, again, which are beyond my expertise, but there is a lot of nice topic. Maybe it can be a good topic for next webinar, like the survival and societal issues of AI.
This could be hours and hours of conversations.
Of course.
Awesome. So I think that brings us to the end. I hope you all enjoyed the last hour and 10 minutes with Maxime. I know I did. Maxime, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to collaborate with you, and it always has been. And I look forward to more in the future. And I wish everybody a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Aksel. Thank you, everyone, again.
Have a great rest of the day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.